Sometimes you gotta get washed to get clean, but it looks like this one is still a bit yucky, so let's help them out a bit. I wouldn't want someone like this to bring the smell of the game to offline tournaments. Hello everyone, Fraud Review here, and today we're taking another look at 808 Haseo again. Don't worry, I'm technically off duty right now. Before we take a look at some of the new fraud data that has developed since the release of the last video, I have an announcement to make. The next viewer review poll will have some extra options as some incredibly talented players have reached out to me to help with the reviews. The testament video will be up next, so stay tuned for that. It will definitely release this week. Alright, let's get to the fraud data. For those who haven't watched the previous video, I highly recommend checking that one out to get the full context on Haseo. It will be linked in the description as well as the info card in the top right corner of this video. Since the last video, I've been getting a lot more info on Haseo through some of my viewers. While pretty much all of this sounds very in line with what we have seen so far, these obviously need to be taken with a grain of salt since there's no way to confirm this. There have also been some allegations about Haseo being a secondary account of a different player, but these are highly dubious at best. We also got confirmation that Haseo knows about the previous video, so thank you for completely shattering all doubts about having ego problems. I am aware that there are players who have considered trying to trick me into covering them by playing on floor 10, but there's no winning with that as you need to actually commit to slamming your way up the ladder in floor 10 to get here. Even if you are a decent player that just farmed floor 10 for the attention, that doesn't really make you any less of a fraud since you're just being a scumbag in the process. By tricking me into covering you, you are just inadvertently becoming a fraud. It's like robbing a bank to trick law enforcement to treat you like a bank robber. Just to make this a bit more clear for anyone new to the channel, being a fraud is not really about playing unoptimally, it's about farming raiding on floor 10. If the best player of all time farmed on floor 10 for fun, I would cover them here as well. That's all for the new fraud data. This took quite a bit longer than I expected. I wonder if I have been forgetting about something. If you like this sort of content, consider subscribing. It helps out a ton. While the first 6p into Stun Dipper was great, the spacing on the second one was off, which made going into Stun Dipper directly a bit risky. When Asuka has multiple projectile spells available, he can threaten chain casting them to catch this or just cancel into resource to block at the spacing. It's also important to note that the appropriate buttons to beat spells varies based on the spells Asuka has in his hand. If he has multiple spells, it's better to break them with 5p to leave room for additional cancels later. Don't forget that this is general Asuka counterplay, so it's true for pretty much all characters. While Haseo couldn't have gotten proper Okizeme, Asuka wasn't really in a position to press anything without a massive risk of blowing up. There was absolutely no reason to go for DP here. Haseo just took a massive risk for nothing. This was so horrible, I don't even know where to start. The burst was incredibly early and risky since it was on a close slash counter hit. Instead of actually making use of the fortunate burst and running pressure, Haseo just decided to gamble it all on a fully charged dust that almost always gets blocked. And to top it all off, they also risk it on another poorly spaced DP. Don't forget that this player we are talking about is the best Kai North America has to offer. While this strike throw worked, there's not really a reason to instantly cash out the shock state on Fudra arc. Hazio was already incredibly plus here and could have just gone into JH Oki setups to build risk while also allowing for some gimmicky high-low and enabling really tricky tick throws. This would have led into a similar reset without wasting shock state. Hazio could have gone into 2k 2D Dire Eclat here to get much more corner carry and a very similar, possibly even more ambiguous strike throw going. Here's how that would look in game. As you can see here, an early 5k whiffs making this throw incredibly ambiguous. While you can easily jump over the super if it's a bit further away, instant air dashing into it is never a good idea. Instant air dashes are way too shallow to avoid it. This instant overhead setup works, but when you already have a charged stun edge opportunity, you might as well go for this version here. This way you get the same mix with more risk buildup as well as a way shorter meter penalty due to the FRC. The notation is on screen for those who are interested. I know I recommended this round start earlier, but if you use it 3 times in a row, you're basically asking to lose round start. This was a certified RAM pizza burst. The conversion was already over since counter hit fast slash doesn't really lead into much without the proper spells. It would have been much better to just keep the burst and use it later to interfere with Asuka's resource management or to save yourself from an actually dangerous conversion. The drops here are nothing noteworthy, but you'd think the best Kai in North America would be a tiny bit more aware when trying to convert. Same here, a 6H would have confirmed the wall stick into a super. But hey, maybe the best Kai in North America knows something we just don't. I actually missed this on my initial watch, but they did a FRC into taunt to end the round here. It looks like the comments from the intro were right after all. It's kind of crazy how this fraud nails the execution on tech that only exists to be toxic but doesn't have the mental capacity to actually finish a conversion. After seeing Hazio use the same round start 4 times in a row now, I genuinely thought that I was accidentally covering the same match twice. I actually went back to double check just to make sure I'm not going crazy here. I let the last DP fumble slide because it kind of devolved into a weird scramble situation, but this one is inexcusable. Hazio even had time to visually confirm that Asuka is nowhere near Kai's DP range. Trying to jump over Tada's Metron is a huge commitment and just gives Asuka the chance to anti-air you. Hazuo could just stay grounded here and hit the cube with much less commitment to play around it. Asuka had no spells to cover 2D here, so his only option was going into Wild Assault. When Asuka committed to recovering mana, Hazuo could have just taken their turn back on reaction instead of trying to air dash out of the corner. I'm pretty sure everyone already knows why this is not a good idea, so I'm not gonna comment on it. And when they finally do a different round start, it's a raw Foudra arc of all things. Foudra arc is slow and doesn't really have a meaningful high profile, especially during the early frames, so this is just a great way to get counter hit on round start. And even if it works, the reward is mediocre if I'm being generous. And another massive drop. Maybe Hazuo would land these if they looked a bit more disrespectful. That's all for today's fraud review. The next viewer review poll will be posted when I start working on the Testament viewer review, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching.